Hey Optimancers, Chris here. Recently I posted a video discussing what changes I think would fix the monk class in my eyes. Obviously opinions vary heavily on the monk, so to some these changes were unnecessary in the first place, and that's fine, and to others they didn't go far enough, and that's fine too. For me, they would be enough to bring the monk class up to the level where we see other classes, even the weaker ones, which frankly I consider enough to make the class playable in an enjoyable way. Though one of the things I mentioned in that video is a revised monk doesn't address subclasses. Monk subclasses have a large variance from Sun Soul Monk that offers very little to the Mercy Monk that offers quite a bit. So today I would like to discuss the changes I'd love to see for the monk subclasses. The intent here is to make adjustments that make all monk subclasses a worthy choice for a monk PC. My goal here is no different than my goal when addressing the monk itself. I'm not looking to make these ultra powerful. It's just fine if Mercy is still the best monk subclass, as long as the other monk subclasses are, reasonable options. I don't want to make these subclasses hard to play, and I definitely don't want to create a bunch of new features that constantly interrupt gameplay so you can look them up. I've fallen into that trap before. I'm after simple adjustments that make the weaker monk subclasses a worthy choice, even when compared to the better monk subclasses, but have none of them be the obvious overwhelming choice. Also, the intention is these changes would be done in concert with my changes to the base monk class. To be clear, without the base monk changes I don't recommend these changes either. Each of these were considered with the monk changes in mind. Without them, some of these changes really aren't going to work. If you like these videos and would be interested in supporting this channel, you can do so by clicking the link in the video description for my Patreon. Patrons of this channel get to see these videos early and without YouTube ads, and my top level patrons can join me and play some D&D every month. Today I want to thank these top level patrons: Scott J. Smith, Sig, Stephen Edmondson, TUM, Taco Knight, Tazel, Thomas Barrero, Thomas Van Lursel, Tristan Bello, Tyler Laughlin, and Xandar the Mighty. Thank you all so much for your continued support. Let's get started. I just want to do a quick recap of the changes I recommended for the monk base class. I recommended changing the hit die to a D10. Martial arts would allow light or medium armor. The martial arts die would scale D6, D8, 2d6, 3d6. Key DC would be based on dexterity. Step of the Wind wouldn't have a resource cost. Quicken Healing would cost 1 key point. Stunning Strike would have a limited resource pool, then cost key afterwards. Stillness of Mind would not be prevented by a charmed or frightened effect that dictates your action. Timeless Body recovers a level of exhaustion on a short rest. The invisibility portion of Empty Body would require a bonus action to set up, and our capstone, Perfect Self, would be completely replaced, and the new capstone would provide a +4 to dexterity and constitution. For the subclasses, I'm only looking at official content. I'm not looking at any third-party or unearthed arcana, just stuff that has been officially released. So first, let's talk about the Way of the Mercy Monk. In my view, this is the most powerful monk subclass by a mile. My monk base class changes boost the subclass features further. The improved martial arts die improves both Hand of Healing and Hand of Harm, and removing the key cost of some features allows the Mercy Monk to use these features more often. So between the already fairly potent subclass and the improvements my monk changes would offer, I don't think any changes are necessary. In addition, all the monk changes are compatible with Mercy Monk, so there aren't any mechanical issues that we need to take care of. So, Way of Mercy Monk stays as is. Next up, Way of Shadow Monk. Way of Shadow has 4 features: Shadow Arts, Shadow Step, Cloak of Shadows, and Opportunist. The main feature that needs to be addressed is Shadow Arts, because we see the tendency in monk design to not allow subclasses to use their features unless they give up class features to do so. Also, the Darkness spell prevents the Shadow Monk from using their Shadow Step ability. So the way I would address this is this. Each of Darkness, Pass Without Trace, Darkvision, and Silence may be cast once per long rest. That's 4 second level spells at 3rd level. Not bad at all, though the castings are set. By having each of them castable once, we also encourage the Shadow Monk character to use each of these spells, encouraging greater variety in their gameplay, rather than casting the same spell over and over. With one use each, they're also easy to track. Finally, and most importantly, using these spells doesn't keep you from using your monk features. The only other change I would make is to the Shadow Step feature. The feature currently reads, as a bonus action, you can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space that you can see that is also in dim light or darkness. And I would add a sentence afterwards that says, additionally, when you cast the Dark Vision spell on yourself using Shadow Arts, you can also see through magical darkness you create with the Shadow Arts feature. This does 2 things. First, it allows the Shadow Monk the opportunity to use Shadow Step in areas they might not normally be able to do so. And secondly, it provides a monk character who might normally not benefit from Dark Vision a use for the spell. Darkness plus the ability to see through it does provide significant offense bonus, but since we've limited darkness to once per day, this doesn't get out of control. So that's my recommendations for the Shadow Monk. Next, let's look at the Way of the Astral Self. So let's look at our level 3 feature first. Arms of the Astral Self did technically get a bit of a boost from our monk changes. The increase to the martial arts die actually boosts the damage that manifesting our astral arms does in the first place. Eventually they could do 66 damage with a bonus action, so the scaling is now at least reasonable. I mentioned this in my monk subclass ranking video. I said, the key cost is fine if only you got something good for it. Later I say, you know what this should do. It should give you more attacks with your martial arts unarmed strikes. And I stand by that. So I think that's what we need to do. Now the reach with unarmed strikes technically has already seen theoretically a boost because of the increase to our martial arts die, because usually unarmed strikes are a lot worse, and if they're better because the martial arts die is better, then we can make more use of that reach. So I don't think we need to go crazy here, but we certainly could include when you use martial arts to make an unarmed strike using your bonus action, you may make 2 unarmed strikes instead. So this is basically the same as flurry of blows, but it's included in our Arms of the Astral Self. With one key cost, we set up flurry of blows for a 10-minute duration, and it will not stack with the current flurry of blows. With the improved martial arts die, this allows for greater sustained damage. It also frees up some key points for uses like stunning strike or focused aim. This is a significant bonus, and it makes the subclass do something substantial at 3rd level. At level 6 we gain Visage of the Astral Self. This feature allows us to scale our Arms of the Astral Self feature, except it costs more ki, and it doesn't do much. And I think we need to address both those issues. First, this should be an automatic upgrade to Arms of the Astral Self. So now when we activate our Arms of the Astral Self, we also automatically activate our Visage. Secondly, this needs to do something. I don't think we need another offensive upgrade, but what about doing something decent defensively, or improve our utility? Wisdom of the Spirit provides advantage on Wisdom Insight checks and Charisma Intimidation checks. I think we can enhance this significantly without breaking anything. I propose instead, this part of the feature provides advantage on any Wisdom or Charisma ability check or saving throw. Charisma saving throws are pretty rare, but Wisdom saves are fairly common, and providing advantage on these saves is a significant defensive enhancement. And by providing advantage on all Wisdom and Charisma ability checks, we're also gaining advantage on Perception, which pairs well with our Astral Sight, but perhaps just as importantly, since we can use Wisdom as our ability score in place of our Strength score for strength checks, then that's also advantage to grappling, which kind of makes sense if you think about it, because we can envision grappling an opponent with both our hands and our astral hands. Our level 11 and 17 features are just fine. In fact, they're better. Empowered Arms has been enhanced by our martial arts die improvement, and so has Astral Barrage. Now the question is, does this go too far? Well, I did some calculations, and if we consider a 17th level Astral Self monk using Arms of the Astral Self in combination with Empowered Arms and Astral Barrage, assuming a +5 ability score modifier and a 60% chance to hit, they should be able to attack 5 times, including their bonus action. Each hit does 3d6 plus 5 damage, or 16.5 on average, and that ends up being 82.5 or 49.5 after we include our chance to miss. Add 2.6 for criticals, another 11.5 from Empowered Arms, and our total DPR after all that, 63.6. And that's a good DPR, but it is not out of control. These are achievable numbers by some non-monks already. And Astral Self now works more like I think it should. The arms provide more attacks because, of course they should. And our 6th level feature provides an upgrade without extra key cost that has a tangible effect on our defensive options. So that's the Astral Self monk. Next up is the Drunken Master. This one needs more work. Drunken Technique is very limited in use, since it's tied to the expenditure of ki through flurry blows. And all it does is it improves our mobility, which was the one thing we were always pretty good at anyways. Then Tipsy Sway has the redirect attack portion, which is cool in concept, but eats up even more ki for a feature that probably isn't as good as other ki-based features. So it's probably not worth using. So you get standing up from prone fast. Then Drunkard's Luck is too circumstantial and way too expensive for what you get. And finally, Intoxicated Frenzy wasn't great because our unarmed strikes were pretty weak, and it forced us to split up our attacks. But I will say our boost to the martial arts die actually probably already fixed this one on its own. The first thing to understand about the Drunken Master concept is that the idea is their fighting style is unpredictable, and that allows them to catch enemies off guard. So maybe let's have it actually do that. My proposed change to the Drunken Technique is that when we use it, we also get advantage on our first attack using the flurry of blows we use to set up Drunken Technique. This gives us a bit of an offense boost, and it makes sense for the feature. We're stumbling around, seemingly unable to fight effectively, then wham, suddenly a quick and accurate strike comes out of nowhere, and the target is unable to react to defend themselves. I also think this just pairs nicely with what we already get from Drunken Technique. The mobility boost really works well with an offense boost, so they marry well together. I think it improves the original feature as well. As mentioned, I like the idea of Tipsy Sway, particularly the redirect attack feature, and honestly, I think it should cost 0 ki. It's using our reaction already, and it's already circumstantial. This is a pretty decent feature if it doesn't eat up our class resources, and I don't see it getting out of hand at all, considering the circumstances that already need to be in play for it to be used in the first place. An enemy must miss us, another valid target has to be in range, and it still requires our reaction. Then Drunkard's Luck. Let's just say this was free. How crazy would that be? Well, then the feature would read, starting at 11th level, you always seem to get a lucky bounce at the right moment. When you make an ability check, an attack roll, or a saving throw, and you have disadvantage, you make the roll without disadvantage instead. For saving throws, almost never going to happen. Ability checks, again, these are seldom with disadvantage. Attack rolls, well, that can happen sometimes. Is it worth 2 ki to cancel that? No way. Is it worth 1 ki? Maybe. 0 ki? Yeah, that's not bad at all. Most of the time we're not attacking with disadvantage, but it does happen. So this feature suddenly becomes okay. And I think those changes, along with the base monk changes, bring the Drunken Master back into line. The next subclass is the infamous 4 Elements Monk. As I mentioned in my subclass rankings video, I think the intention was that the 4 Elements Monk would fill a similar role for Monk that Arcane Tricksters do for Rogue, or that Eldritch Knights do for Fighters. Take a martial class, add a bit of limited spellcasting. Specifically, what I have a problem with here is that Arcane Tricksters and Eldritch Knights get a resource included in the subclass in order to cast their spells, but 4 Elements Monks get no additional resources for which to use their features. I guess also I would love to see a 4 Elements monk choose an element and gain features specifically tied to the element they chose, but that would require a complete subclass redesign, and I think that is definitely beyond the scope of what I want to achieve here, and definitely creates a situation where we would have to access new rules in gameplay, which is a new problem I don't want to add, so I'm going to give up on that one. So my initial thought is, what if we gave the 4 Elements monk spell slots? But one issue with giving the 4 Elements monk spell slots in which to cast their spells is that not all their elemental disciplines are spells at all, and some are not intuitive. Some of them are easy. Burning Hands, 1st level spell. Hold Person, 2nd level spell. Gaseous Form, 3rd level spell. Stone Skin, 4th level spell. This matches the levels we access these spells. 1st level spells at 3rd level, 2nd level spells at 6th level, 3rd level spells at 11th level, and 4th level spells at 17th level. But one thing about this that is not compatible with Eldritch Knight or Arcane Trickster progression is the new spell levels aren't gained at the same levels. Also, there are some anomalies, like 17th level has a Wall of Stone option. This is a 5th level spell. They balance this by having it cost extra ki. Unless we provide 5th level slots, there is no easy way to account for this. Then we have elemental disciplines that aren't spells at all. Here's Fangs of the Fire Snake. It is 1 ki to use, another ki to get extra damage. So how do we account for that with spell slots? And that one's not even the hardest. Here's Fist of Unbroken Air. This costs 2 ki to use, and by spending extra ki you can do extra damage up to a d10 per ki point spent. The limit on ki expenditure is presumably already set out in the spells and ki points table, though not all elemental disciplines, including Fist of Unbroken Air, are specifically defined as elemental discipline spells. So they might not even fall under the restriction of this table. I mean, on a very strict reading of the feature, I would say they perhaps don't. But honestly, they probably should, at least from a design perspective. Also, if the 4 Elements monk was to use spell slots to use elemental disciplines, then we also take from them the bonus action attack provided from the ki-fueled attack feature. This wasn't a huge benefit, but it at least gave the 4 Elements monk something, and honestly, the ability to mix weapon attacks with spellcasting was a cool feature conceptually, and I'm not interested in taking this away from them. So as much as I want to give the 4 Elements monk spell slots, I don't think spell slots work, unless we rework the entire subclass. As I said, I'm looking for simple fixes. So here's my simple fix for the 4 Elements monk. First, we get a new pool called Chi. We get 1 Chi point per level of monk. And if Chi and Ki is too confusing, then call it something else. Call them element points or something. The name doesn't matter, but for this video I'll call them Chi. First, spending a point of Chi counts as spending a point of Ki in regards to the ki-fueled attack feature. Second, the spells and ki points table is now referred to as the elemental disciplines and chi points table, so it applies to both the casting of spells, but also to non-spell elemental disciplines regarding the maximum number of chi points that may be spent. Third, any reference to ki in regards to casting elemental spells or in regards to using elemental disciplines is changed to chi. And I think we're done. Since ki and chi are different pools, the 4 Elements monk subclass features and class features now use resources that are incompatible, meaning using our class features never interferes with our subclass features, and vice versa. But the same limits on subclass features are technically in play. A revised 4 Elements monk can't do anything with their subclass features that the original 4 Elements monk couldn't do. So all the safeguards are still in play. So how does this look in practice? Well, let's consider an 11th level 4 Elements monk. They would have elemental attunement as always with no chi expenditure, then have 3 additional elemental attunements. Let's go ahead and choose an air theme. So we'll take Clench of the North Wind, Fist of Unbroken Air, and Ride the Wind. So Clench of the North Wind allows us to cast Hold Person for 3 chi points. According to the elemental disciplines and chi points table, we can spend up to 4 chi points on a feature. So we could upcast Hold Person to 3rd level twice, before we don't have enough chi to do it again until we take a short rest. A couple 2nd level spells cast at 3rd level per short rest is something I don't see an issue at 11th level, and I think we're fine. Okay, so what about Fist of Unbroken Air? 2 chi points to use this feature, and we could spend 2 additional chi to make it 5d10 damage. Not a problem. A couple 5d10 pushing attacks per short rest is decent, but level appropriate. And then Ride the Wind. Fly a couple times per short rest. That's good, but again, not a problem at 11th level. Now obviously I haven't playtested this, but it looks like it should work fine in the examples I played around with. So that's the 4 Elements Monk. Our next subclass is Way of the Kensei. This subclass isn't that bad. I mean, on an unrevised monk, it's not good enough, but with the revisions, I think it's passable. But I do still think we have an opportunity to do a couple simple things to make it work, frankly, a bit more smoothly. We don't want to go overboard though, because as far as monk subclasses go, Kensei is one of the better ones. First, at 3rd level, Kensei Shot. This allows us to use our bonus action to do an extra d4 damage of the weapon's type to any target we hit with a ranged attack using a Kensei weapon on that turn. I think what we want to do here instead is, when we make a ranged attack using our bonus action with a ranged Kensei weapon on our turn, we can make a ranged attack with that same weapon using our bonus action. This isn't out of line with Crossbow Expert. A character with the right feat can already make bonus action attacks, but in this case, we can do it with any ranged weapon. I think that's good, but it's not out of line, and it adds the idea of a Kensei being able to switch between melee and ranged by not forcing us to specialize through feats. Next, at level 6 we get One with the Blade. Deft Strike got a nice boost with our base monk revisions, so I think this is doing fine. Then level 11, Sharpen the Blade. I propose 2 changes. First, we would change the wording to specify the maximum bonus gained is +3. Second, we would change the wording to allow it to work with weapons with an existing bonus to hidden damage by reducing the cost. So instead the feature would read, at 11th level, you gain the ability to augment your weapons further with your ki. As a bonus action, you can expend up to 3 ki points to grant one Kensei weapon you touch a bonus to attack and damage rolls when you attack with it. The bonus equals the number of ki points you spent and stacks with the existing bonus to attack and damage rolls of a magic weapon, but cannot total more than +3. This bonus lasts for 1 minute or until you use this feature again. And I think that works just fine. And frankly, it makes the feature easier to use. And then we get Unerring Accuracy, which is fine, so Kensei, done. Next, Way of the Long Death. At 3rd level, Touch of Death is already a good feature. It's even better with our improved martial arts die. No change required. I guess if you want to solve the issue that a monk could carry around a bunch of nothing creatures in a bag and abuse this, then you could require the creature reduced to 0 hit points, have a challenge rating greater than 0. I think at most tables, players aren't going to be abusing this though, especially with an improved monk. Level 6 though, Hour of Reaping needs an adjustment. The issue is friendly fire. There are 2 ways we could handle this. First, we could give the Long Death Monk a way to reduce the area so they can avoid friendly fire at a cost of range, or we could allow them to exclude allies, and that could be limited by proficiency bonus or something. I actually prefer the first option. It gives some flexibility. So instead the feature would read, at 6th level you gain the ability to unsettle or terrify those around you as an action, for your soul has been touched by the shadow of death. When you take this action, each creature up to a radius of 30 feet around you that can see you must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be frightened of you until the end of your next turn. So if you have allies within 20 feet, then you make the radius 15 feet. Easy to implement, and makes the feature usable without scaring all your own party. Mastery of Death is already a decent ability, doesn't need an adjustment. And Touch of the Long Death can do up to 20d10 damage twice per short rest, so it's potent enough as is. So Way of the Long Death is done. Next up, Way of the Open Hand. Open hand technique was okay to begin with, and with more ki freed up to spend on flurry blows, I think it's better. Wholeness of body needs work though. It was just not enough healing, and it's only once per long rest. So we either increase the amount, or make it a bonus action, or have it usable more often, or a combination of the above. And I am reminded that my goal here is to keep these changes simple. So, what if you just regain full hit points using your action once per long rest? I mean, out of combat, regaining full hit points once between fights per long rest is good, but hardly unique, and it'll save some resources. In combat, we would basically be giving up a turn of combat to get back in fighting shape once. I think that's good, but I don't think it's broken. So in this case, I think the simplest fix works, and it's even easier to apply than the original feature. Now, what about level 11? Tranquility isn't good, and I struggle a bit to figure out how to make this decent, yet not broken, yet easy to use, without adding complexity. I mean, if it's reset every short rest, it's still not great, but you know what? It's easy, and it is better. And I think that's the best we can do here without making this feature complicated or a complete redesign, which is not what I'm after. Then our level 17 feature is already good and doesn't need a fix. So, Open Hand Monk, done. And that brings us to our final subclass, and perhaps the worst of all the subclasses in the game, and I mean the game, the Sun Soul Monk. At level 3 we get Radiant Sunbolt, which gives us a lousy ranged attack with poor range that does less damage than we could do with a short bow. It can eat up our ki and doesn't work well with our existing monk features. Now, our improved martial arts die does improve this feature, but not enough. And I have an idea that I think will make this work without adding complexity. This feature reads, you gain a new attack option that you can use with an attack action. This special attack is a ranged spell attack with a range of 30 feet. You are proficient with it, and you add your dexterity modifier to its attack and damage rolls. Its damage is radiant, and the damage die is d4. This die changes as you gain monk levels, as shown in the martial arts column of the monk table. So, what if it read, this is my proposal. You gain a new attack option. This special attack is a ranged spell attack with a range of 30 feet. You are proficient with it, and you add your dexterity modifier to its attack and damage rolls. Its damage is radiant, and its damage die equals our martial arts die. We can use our martial arts to make a bonus action attack with this feature when we take the attack action on our turn. In addition, once we gain the Stunning Strike feature, we can use that feature when we hit a creature with this special attack. So basically what I've done is I've turned it into unarmed fighting with a 30-foot range. We'll keep the radiant damage because, it fits the flavor of the ability, but otherwise the mechanics are just like unarmed fighting. Furthermore, we can use flurry of blows, at least effectively, already with this feature. So, in terms of balance, this is unarmed fighting. I mean, effectively, at up to a 30-foot range, there's no grappling or anything, because, that wouldn't make sense, but I think this becomes a decent feature. It's also easy to use because it's basically a mimic of our melee unarmed attacks, except we're changing the damage type. So it's probably even easier to use than what they had. Then at level 6, Burning Hands is a bonus action for 2 ki that you upcast with even more ki. Well, first off, 2 ki to use this is too much. Well, let's imagine that we scrapped the 2 ki to use this. So we can use Burning Hands, that's 3d6 with a save for half, as a bonus action for free. I think that's often worthwhile, but at 6th level, I just don't see it ever being a problem. Though the problem might be that eventually this is going to just be worse than just doing an unarmed strike with our bonus action, never mind anything that does cost ki. So we'll keep the upcasting as is. So you can spend ki to upcast Burning Hands, with the maximum amount being half your monk level. So you can get the big burst if you like, but it costs you the ki. If you never spend this ki, well, Burning Hands as a bonus action on each of your turns is okay. Then 11th level and Searing Sunburst. Without ki, this feature is pretty rotten, and with 3 ki, it is almost Fireball. I guess that's 3 almost Fireballs per short rest, though that will eat up almost all our ki. But what about this? What if we simplify this and say we can cast Fireball a number of times equal to our proficiency bonus per long rest? When we do so, the damage is radiant damage. Then it wouldn't be eating up our monk features, and it would be okay. So to sum up, and ideally if I met my goal, these are quick and easy to explain, even if you haven't watched the rest of this video. So let's see how that goes. Way of Mercy, no changes. Way of Shadow can cast their Shadow Art spells once per long rest each, and at 6th level, the Dark Vision spell allows seeing through the darkness spell cast with Shadow Arts. Way of the Astral Self. Arms of the Astral Self allow 2 bonus action attacks when you use martial arts. Visage now provides advantage to all wisdom and charisma checks and saves and doesn't cost extra ki. Way of the Drunken Master. Drunken Technique now provides advantage on the first attack with flurry of blows. Tipsy, Sway, and Drunkard's Luck no longer cost ki. Way of the 4 Elements. We get chi points, which equal our ki points, and fuel our 4 Elements features instead of ki. Way of the Kensei. Kensei Shot now gives a bonus action range attack instead of the D4. Sharpened Blade now allows combining with magical weapons to a maximum of +3. Long Death. Hour of Reaping now allows the monk to choose the radius of the effect up to 30 feet. Open Hand. Wholeness of Body now restores full hit points, and Tranquility now recovers every short or long rest. Sun Soul. Now Radiant Sunbolt works like a 30-foot range for unarmed combat, except it does radiant damage. Searing Arc Strike is free unless you upcast it, and Searing Sunburst now allows you to cast Fireball with radiant damage proficiency bonus times per long rest. These all seem pretty easy to me, and once you select your subclass, they shouldn't be hard to remember. So those are my proposed fixes. Combined with my revisions for the base monk class, I think any of the subclass options isn't a bad choice. But do you agree? Well, we have a comment section to let me know. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.